terrible feedback from somebody.
I was just going to let you guys know I'm going to stay muted. I have some people over at my house. So
You got
just
it.
so you know.
Pipe in if you need to. Absolutely. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And okay, looks like we are live on YouTube. Hello, everyone. Just making sure we're live everywhere. Welcome, welcome. And I think we're good on Facebook also. Okie dokie. And so let's get this party started, shall we? First of all, happy Wine Wednesday. I'm sipping on my very favorite Pinot Noir, the acronym brand, one of my faves. Definitely try it, guys. Let me know what you're sipping on in the comments or in the room. Tonight's open chat, and Nicole has something to share right off the bat. But first, I wanted to make a couple of quick announcements. First off, I'm going to be doing a poll in the coming weeks, so watch my posts to find out if you guys are liking the room setup or if we should try Zoom. So Zoom or room kind of thing. And then second of all, if we do switch to Zoom, and even if whether we do or not, what we wanted you guys to know is in Seahorse Sources group, there's a second room that says, I think it says test room, or he may have changed the name. But the bottom line is when you jump into that room, so like if you're having a crisis or emergency or something, and you jump into that room, it actually rings Dan. So he can't always jump and answer the question, but if you get into the room, there's a very likelihood that you're going to get him in there too, or someone else will jump in and try to help you out or whatever, if you just want to chat, that kind of thing. So just take a look at the second room, and we'll keep you updated on how we're going to continue with Wine Wednesday. Don't worry, this show will go on. But happy Wine Wednesday, all. And so far I have Holly, Lisa, Cheryl, I'm sorry, not Lisa, Holly, Dan, Cheryl, and Nicole with me so far. And I'm going to hand it over right away to Nicole. Why don't you tell us the story you told me, Miss Nicole, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I'm kind of horrified and somewhat embarrassed. But
Don't be.
I was having some, algae issues kind of, for the last couple of months. My tank is fairly new. It was only set up in December. So doing the research that I did, try Vibrant. Vibrant's miracle worker. It was great. And I bought it a while ago, and I put in maybe like 1 or 2 doses, but then just recently started using it pretty religiously, for the, to get rid of some algae. So it worked pretty good for the algae. However, my husband and I just went to Vegas, and we got back, and it was like blue-green algae takeover on the tank. So not wanting to add too much chemical to it, I just started, siphoning it out as much as I could. And, I thought it was doing okay, but it would kind of be back the next day. So then I just keep doing it. And then all of a sudden I noticed yesterday morning we left, for a 2-hour road trip actually to go get me a new tank, a 75-gallon upgrade for the seahorses with a sump and everything else, which I've been looking for a while. Found a really good deal with everything I needed, and then came back, and I was, feeding them last night, and I looked, and my big male and my 2 mini seahorses all had Popeye. So absolute panic. I had a fresh bucket of salt water ready and waiting, so I put them in there at least for the time being, and then this was, by the time I noticed this last night, it was too late to go get any medications, and I did have Furin too, but it was expired because it's been in my cabinet for a while. So I went today and got that, and then just to put them in a hospital tank with that, and just as I was getting ready to transfer them, I put my arm in the tank, I lifted some of them out, and then as I'm placing them into the hospital tank, I notice there's a little baby on my arm. Literally on my arm. Again, it must be one of the minis, because every time he looks like he might be a little puffy, but you can't tell if he's actually pregnant or not. He's just like doesn't want you to know.
That was my bad. I'm listening. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. So now I just looked in the tank, and I had a few. The one that was stuck to my arm I think he's gone. He had to have been stuck to my arm for a couple of minutes. I did pull 3 more out, which look, I don't know. So now I'm on
Baby duty.
watch. I'm
Well,
like, oh God, really?
as I
Of
told
all
you,
the timing.
I'm so sorry. I'm trying not to interrupt this week, guys.
No, you're
Definitely
fine.
call me on it if I do.
No.
But first off, I just want to tell you anybody here will tell you that everybody's had experiences like this where it just seems like one thing after another. And it's not always, like the person's fault. It's sometimes just this shit happens, and I want to get Dan's take on this and anyone else who wants to give advice because as I told you as we were talking via message that I've never experienced seahorses having Popeye. And one of the questions, Nicole, you've had to repeat this story 3 times, so I'm just going to throw it out there before I hand it over to Dan, is that one of the things she wanted to know is whether or not she could put ChemiClean in the tank, if that would be good, bad, or ugly after using Vibrant to get rid of the cyano blue-green algae. And so, yeah. So, Dan, what are you thinking right off the bat about all this?
What were you using to put in the tank, Nicole?
Vibrant.
Vibrance?
Yeah, Vibrant. It's supposed to be great for algae. I believe from the research that I did, it's I don't know what exactly kind of bacteria, but it's not like the nitrifying bacteria. It's a different type of
Is it
bacteria.
vibrant or vibrance?
Vibrant with a T at the end.
Okay.
She also
It doesn't say what's in it. Kelly, you're really
It
loud.
doesn't. It's
I'm really loud. Do I sound really loud,
Yeah.
guys? Here, I can turn it down. So sorry.
Yeah, no, they don't tell you what's in it. All I know is that
I
it's
should be
some
better
type
now.
of bacteria that's supposed to help with algae. However, when I started having, when I got back from Vegas and noticed how bad the cyano, the blue-green cyano was, I did do more research, and it did say that a lot of people that have used it do have problems with cyano at the, you know what I mean, like
Okay.
after a certain
Okay.
period of time of using it.
Do you have a protein skimmer on the tank?
I do.
And are you pulling a lot of stuff out of the water?
It's everything I have in my current tank is hang on the back, which is why I'm so excited about my upgrade.
Yep.
But it's a smaller cup, so I'm probably emptying it every 2 or 3 days, and that's there's only maybe 1/4 of an inch of stuff in the bottom of it, but it's a tiny little cup.
How many seahorses?
We have the 2 large and then the 2 mini.
Okay. And how many gallons?
It's like 40.
Okay. The temperature of the tank?
It's usually around 72.
Good. And what are you running for a biological filter?
Well, I have lots of dry rock. I think I have about 30 pounds of live sand in there.
Yep.
And then I have my mechanical filtration, which has biopellets in it as well.
Right. But does it have any type of floss or anything like that in there?
Yeah, I do. I change that out regularly, and I do tank maintenance at least once a week. You know what I mean? Besides, like the obvious,
Yep.
like emptying the, and I do water changes every week. I'm very meticulous about it.
Yep.
So.
And when you water changes once a week, you said how many gallons roughly? Ballpark?
I'm doing about between 5 and 10, depending. You know what I mean? If the sand is looking pretty nasty, especially like the last week or so because of the cyano, I'm doing closer to 10 just because I'm trying to siphon out as much of that as I can as I'm doing it. So you lose water as you're siphoning the other stuff out. So.
Okay. Well, the fact that you've had all of them get it at the same time tells me it's environmental. So
Right.
putting them into a new tank sometimes by itself is going to resolve the issue over a matter of a few days. You can speed up the process if you get a hold of some Diamox.
Okay.
There is somebody on the group that has been advertising Diamox, so you could contact them and see about getting it. The other avenue is to try to talk to a vet and have them write a script out and then get it filled at a pharmacy.
Right.
If you can get a vet to do that. I can tell you that normally when you move them to good clean water over a period of 2 to 3 days, normally the Popeye will resolve itself. Now, in reality, it's not Popeye; it's actually a gas bubble disease.
Okay.
Popeye is a bacterial infection of the eye. It's something that fish get that we normally don't see in seahorses. With seahorses, it's usually gas bubble disease around the eyes.
Mm.
And
Okay.
I, I would probably tell you to stop using the Vibrant. I don't know
Yeah,
what's
I'm
in it.
done.
I'm I'm always hesitant when I don't know what's in a product when I go to put it in a tank.
Right.
Um, I'm just very cautious of that. Now, some people will go ahead and treat with antibiotics, but I don't believe that this is a bacterial issue. So I think you're spinning your wheels by doing antibiotics.
Okay. Okay. So I just did put them in a hospital tank with furin too. Should I just make, obviously move them to new water and just let it be and see how it goes and maybe try to contact a vet
I
for
would not.
Diamox?
I probably would leave them where they are instead of moving them and changing the water again. And then tomorrow, just when you do just do your water changes and not add the Furon 2 to it.
Okay.
And this is why
Now
I'm
there is,
so glad we did this, Nicole, because as I said, I hadn't dealt with it before, and now that Dan's saying all this, it's jerking my memory. But I'm the one that told her she was good going with Furon too. So this is why we do
No,
this,
yep.
guys.
I had to do
Yeah,
something
yeah.
because I was in a panic. So
Go ahead, Dan.
I've not
Um,
had any problems with them at all. You know what I mean? And I'm,
Sure.
like I said, I'm kind of shocked because if I was, somebody that was lazy and I just said, tank maintenance, maybe next week, I would get it. But I'm ridiculous about it. But I don't
well,
know.
I don't, not knowing what's in the stuff, it, I can only guess. But I truly believe it's environmentally caused, especially,
Right.
when you look at what happens. If it was bacterial, you would see it staggered as it would affect different animals. But when you see multiples get it at the same time, you think environmental.
Right.
Um, Now, again, there's somebody on the group, and I don't remember who it is. Maybe Cheryl
I've
remembers,
seen it
but
before
Yeah.
with the
Lucy.
Diamox.
Angela Gibson. Is it Gibson?
that could be.
Oh,
Let me
and also Lucy has some.
Yes.
Lucy Arowana.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would message them privately and see
Okay.
if they can send it to you. Unless you've got a vet that will write a script without seeing the animal. Most vets want to see the animals, and
Kind of tough
technically
to
they're
bring your
supposed to.
seahorses in.
Yeah, technically they're supposed to see the animal before they write the script. We had a good
Okay.
relationship with our vet, and he would write a script anytime we asked for it without questioning us. That's not common.
Right.
And when you tell a vet that you want Diamox for a seahorse, they're going to look at you like you have three heads because they have no clue what in the hell you're using it for.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
I will try
for
though.
sorry, Nicole. So for future reference, first of all, guys, do I sound more quiet now? Is my volume down? Let me know in the comments or whatnot. I did try to adjust it. Second of all, so Dan, just for future reference, if when it's bubbly, when it's bubbles or any kind of bubble or any of that stuff, Diamox, and the way that you would know if it was caused by a bacterial thing is if it was happening not all of them at once, right? Is that basically
Right.
the
Well,
rundown?
if they were getting it staggered,
Yeah.
where you had one today and one another week, next week, and I would think maybe there's a possibility that it's bacterial. Gas bubble disease is poorly understood in seahorses, but I can tell you from experience, the Diamox doesn't cure what caused it. It just simply reduces the symptoms.
Right.
And I'm the last time I used Diamox, to give you an idea, mine expired in 2010, and I threw it away. I don't know, 2012 or 13, 14, somewhere in there, and I hadn't used it in like, I don't know, 10 years when I threw it away. Um,
Right.
I say 10 years, probably 6 or 7 years. Um, but I have experimented myself and been able to, and I've worked with customers, but just by moving them to good, clean water, it resolves itself, assuming that it's not bacterial in nature. Most of the time,
Right.
it's environmental, and when you put them in good, clean water, they have a tendency to resolve itself. Now, if you do get the Diamox, the dosage is 250 milligrams, which is one tablet per 10 gallons once a day,
Uh-oh.
up to 5 days. Um,
Okay.
Diamox, normally by the second or third day, you start seeing a reduction. Sometimes by the third day, it's all done. You can stop it whenever the symptoms are gone.
Okay.
You also should be aware that Diamox is an appetite depressant. Um, Usually that's not a problem. If the seahorses are otherwise in good shape, they'll normally still eat. And if you do have to do other medications, you can mix Diamox with other meds.
Okay. And do you do water changes in between? Do you just like
Yes,
100%?
yes.
Okay.
Now you can do 50%. What size tank are you using for a hospital tank?
10.
Yeah, I would probably do a 50% water change each day.
Okay. Oh boy. And now to throw babies in the mix, I'm like, stop it. Stop it. And I don't know if they're premature. I don't know, because 3 of them are just kind of laying on the bottom. The one, like I said, the one that was stuck to my arm was probably gone before I threw him in with my other fry because I didn't know what else to do. It's like, I don't know. And one more quick question, just because I've got you guys now and I'm kind of on baby watch, so I'm going to be in and out. The new tank, I have not done anything with it yet, other than it's in my where I'm going to keep it. Obviously, it's going to require a lot more rock because it's a decent size bigger. But I don't. Any suggestions on changing them over? Should
What
I cycle it like a brand new tank?
when you say it needs a lot more rock, why do you say that?
Because I'm going from a 40 to a 75. Wouldn't it need more to sustain the
I
good
don't run rock
bacteria?
in any of my tanks.
You don't. Okay.
No. It all depends upon
This is
what
why
you
I
have.
asked, because you guys
Right,
know better.
right. Well, the thing is are you going to run a sump with this tank?
I am, yeah.
Okay. If you have your biological filtration in the sump combined with the sand and some rock, you really don't need to add more rock. People from
Okay.
the reefing community, try to put, 400 or 500 pound rocks in a 2 gallon tank.
Well, that's
and it,
why I
and it,
always think, oh God, I need at least 75 pounds of rock if I'm going to have a 75-gallon
now,
tank, and plus I got the
I
refugium to set up. Like,
if I was setting up a display tank, a 75, for example, for display purposes, I'd probably put a pile of rock to one side and I'd probably have Callirpa on the other side. Um,
okay,
Seahorses are really more of an estuary creature, not a reef creature. Rock is not their normal habitat for most seahorses.
right.
It is good to have rock in a tank. I'm not trying to just say that, but you'll enjoy the seahorses more if they have more room in the tank to move about.
Mhm.
I agree, and I'm really excited. So if well, because I can't, obviously they're still in their old tank, so, well, not right this moment they aren't, but I can't just pull the rock. I'm afraid I'll lose a lot of my biological filtration. But
Well,
so
you
should I'll
can,
just,
you can, but you've also got the problem with the algae. So what I would do if it was me is I would take the rock and I would set up a bucket with salt water and I would take the rock and I would put it inside the bucket of salt water and shake it vigorously in that water before putting it in your tank to rinse off whatever's in the other tank before it goes in the new tank.
Do you have
okay,
cyano or green hair algae?
I have both.
Okay, with cyano, go buy a toothbrush,
Yeah.
put it in salt water, and that stuff just falls off. Cyano's
And it,
easy.
yeah, and the blue-green cyano that I'm having the problem with right now is more so on the sand than it is anywhere else. And I'm not going to reuse the sand anyway. I'm just going to get all new live sand.
Well, both of these algae love light, and if a lot of people I know, and I've used it myself, turn the lights off or keep them really low, it will literally disappear on its own.
Okay.
So, and I never treat for cyano or any of that stuff. I have on occasion gotten it. In fact, I have one tank right now that I was increasing the lighting on. I started to get cyano, so now I dropped the lighting back down, and it's melting away.
Yeah, I've had problems with, like I said, with the green hair algae. But I didn't completely where it's a new tank. I thought maybe I would probably at some point have a little bit of a problem with some type of algae,
The other
somewhere
thing,
along the way. I think honestly, it was that Vibrant that just all of a sudden the cyano took off once I started using it religiously. And then, of course, after the fact, I started looking up cyano and Vibrant, and sure enough, people had bad problems with cyano at the end of it. So,
the other, on a side note from what Dan was saying with the Popeye, I was actually at the San Antonio Aquarium here a couple months ago. I've never had a seahorse with Popeye. I've never seen it. And they had one out. I mean, the eye was so swollen, and I went and looked at the rest of their seahorses. And I started pointing out, this one's getting it, this one's starting to get it, and so on.
Mm.
And it spread very slowly. And that's where I went with it being a bacterial infection rather than carbonic anhydrase or trauma.
Right.
So, because each seahorse was in different stages of developing the Popeye.
Right. Yeah. Like my two mini, it's like one eye and it's barely noticeable. But of course, I'm like looking at them all. You know what I
Right.
mean? So closely. It was really just my big male that is like it's. But as soon as I saw, you know what I mean? As soon as I saw that, I said, "That's it." I'm like,
Yeah.
everything's coming out for a little bit. That's enough. So.
And also, I'm going to advise you with this, like the cyano, yeah, there's different commercial products that you can buy that will kill it. The problem with those is, one, they tend to dramatically reduce your O2 saturation in your tank, and the tank actually becomes hypoxic, meaning it's running out of oxygen, which can kill seahorses. And I would definitely not recommend using like Chemiclean or any of that for that reason.
Right.
I've used Chemiclean with the seahorses, but I hear your point, especially when there's already trouble. I also wanted to go back really quickly, guys, to what Dan was saying in the very beginning, and I'll just mention that in my case, I had a seahorse that had tail. He had bubbles in his tail, the tip of his tail. Excuse me. And let me know if I'm still really, really loud, guys. I turned it down, but I can keep adjusting if I'm screaming at you. Anyhow, I treated the first time with Furon 2. It worked, but then the seahorse, 6 months later, got the bubbles again. Obviously, in my case, it was an environmental thing because they kept getting it. He kept getting it. It was just this one male, but he kept getting it. And so I treated with Diamox. It worked. The bubbles went down. As Dan said, it doesn't actually solve it. It just treats the symptom. When I put the seahorse back in, 6 months later, he had the bubbles in his tail again. I ended up putting him in just clean water. And frankly, at that point, guys, I'll admit I was about to give up and just say, okay, obviously the seahorse is just weak or something. And he got better on his own and never got it again. I did a few things like clean the
It all
tank.
comes down to water quality.
Yeah, it really. So just thoughts for your, if you can't get Diamox or whatever, still don't give up. There's a chance that just with clean water, as Dan said, he could get better. Because it might be
Thank
just
you.
something from that vibrant or from the cyano or something in the tank.
That was my other question. Has anybody ever heard of cyano causing anything like that? I don't know. I just don't, because I've not really had any problems with it ever. So I just don't, until you can't research what you don't know.
Sure.
It might happen.
I don't think that the cyano is actually causing it. But the cyano is a symptom of high organics in the tank. There's a lot of something. There's a lot of bacteria in the tank. There's a lot of something going on that's, probably affecting seahorses. What were you going to say, Cheryl?
Well, I know Lucy has some, and she has been telling people, send me a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I will send it out to you at no additional charge.
Thank you so much. I will contact her. She also offered, as Dan said, with the new tank, Calerpa, she has beautiful, beautiful macroalgae. And I asked her where she got them, and she said, I clip so much away. When the weather stabilizes, let me know. I'll send you some. Yeah. So, yeah, that would be great.
Thing is, when I first started with seahorses, I periodically saw things like pouch emphysema and some of that, which is also a problem with carbonic anhydrase buildup. I have not seen any bubbles, never seen Popeye, haven't had do a pouch evac in at least 10 or 12 years.
Well, I hope someday I'm on your level.
Right.
This is all new for me.
Don't feel bad, Nicole.
Yeah, I did want them, obviously I started setting up my tank in December, and come the end of February, when everything had leveled out, here we are. And I haven't had a fish tank since I was a kid, except my son has a bunch of freshwater tanks, but totally different. So
yeah, and the people that have been doing this for a long time, they know and see things that newer people might not see. But I'm telling you, every single person, even if she didn't go through it for 10 years, every single person here's been through something. I mean,
yeah,
it's not you. Don't worry. Just learn and keep going. And
that's it.
Ray, did you have any thoughts about this? Have you had any experience with this kind of stuff?
Never had stuff like that, like the pouch emphysema. Yeah, and that was fairly recent, as I explained
Mm-hmm.
about, I'm guessing now, maybe a month ago.
Right.
And for me, it was persistent, and yet I know it wasn't because of the tank water conditions. Um, but for some reason, I took the yeah, took the syringe and sucked up some bile bandage, put that in the pouch, and never had the problem since.
Which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, I was
It
just
tells me
thinking,
it was probably something uh, bacterial
mhm.
in the pouch that I wasn't getting when I was flushing with fresh salt water.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not doing enough, I don't know. But whatever, um, once I used the bio, I didn't get it again. I've never used that before for something like that. I only had it here for years ago when I had um, reed eye that had bacterial
Mm-hmm.
infection external, and I got it to try just to see if it would help out. I was using Furan 2 at the time, but I wanted to see if it would heal up faster by putting the bio on it. And I actually don't remember now whether it was faster or not, but I still had the bio here, and I can't get anything else anymore here in Canada. Uh, Even if you try to order it through an online thing, they grab it at the border.
Mm.
Oh,
Well, I'm just
Uh,
glad that it did work for you, Ray. And Nicole, in case we do veer off into some other topic, please keep us updated because you've been a great seahorse keeper, and we love that you come, and we want to help any way we can. And fingers seriously crossed, I think you'll be okay. I'm feeling good.
Thank you. I hope so too, because
Renee?
I know that they're fish, but you can't help it.
No,
You get
right.
attached.
Absolutely. Did you have any? Did you get all of your questions answered, or was
Well,
there?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Just wanted to be sure. Go ahead,
And
Cheryl.
never again add anything weird to the tank unless I get you guys to tell me to do it.
Ray, can you get Alamax where you up there in Canada? Dan got me started using it.
I have it. Yeah, Dan told me about it, and I got it.
That stuff works. And it's like Dan even said, I even got a cut on my hand, and by the next morning, I put a little drop on. I could barely find the cut.
Crazy.
Stuff works real. I've used it a couple different times and referred a couple people to using it. And if you can get it in Canada, that would solve the bio bandage problem.
Yeah, I have it.
It's not cheap.
Nope.
No, that's for sure.
But, in the feed store, I had somebody come in about 2 weeks ago with a dog that had a problem, and I recommended getting it and putting it on the wound on the dog, and they did, and it solved the problem right away.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady told me she came in to thank me, and she said my son went over to his friends and cut his foot, went swimming in a creek, and
Oh,
ended up with a nasty infection. She put it on there, cleared it up right away. Then her husband came in, and he thanked me and told me he was a diabetic and he had a thing on his foot, and he said whenever he gets sores on his feet, it takes weeks to heal, and in 2 days the infection was gone.
well, I had a young male that went through a hole in a rock and got himself stuck. He wasn't in there very long, but he was in there long enough and stuck in such a way that he had abrasions on his snout, and his snout swelled up. I put the Alamax on. Within 3 hours, his snout looked normal.
Wow.
I was shocked.
Well, the thing what people don't realize is that garlic, there's several different things about garlic that are really very potent besides the other health benefits you can get from it. But garlic is able to break down and prevent the the matrix of the whatever they call it, the saccharides or whatever that creates the biofilm, and it's able to break down that biofilm and prevent it from happening. It disrupts the quorum sensing so that the bacteria is not able to communicate with each other. It also screws up the molecules inside the bacteria to where they don't function correctly. And it's on top of that, unlike other things that we put on wounds, it's able to penetrate through the skin, much like DMSO would.
Yeah.
And it also is able to permeate the cellular membrane. So it's very powerful. The problem is that most garlic products don't have the allicin in it.
Right.
Right.
Allicin, unless it's stabilized, is basically devoid in any product you buy that says garlic, unless it has whatever the proper name is for the allicin that has been stabilized. And Alimax, there's a couple of other products out there with similar names, but they say that on there specifically that it's stabilized allicin. And I can't say enough good things about it in terms of using it. And if you look at the research, it's been known to clear up. I'm just shocked that the medical community doesn't use it more. It'll clear up MRSA. It's great for lung infections. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways that it can be used very, very effectively. And the other cool thing is that, let's say you're treating with antibiotics, it breaks down the antibiotic resistance in the bacteria, so the antibiotics
Oh,
work
wow.
better.
Really
Yeah,
cool.
that one male that I had, I was literally, when I saw him and got him out, I was setting up a hospital tank and did a quick Alimax while I was setting up the hospital system. When I went back to put him in the hospital tank, his snout looked virtually normal.
So crazy.
It was
Really,
absolutely amazing.
that is amazing. Really quick, I was looking it up to try to post a link, Dan, and I found something that's capsules. Is the capsules the correct type
No,
or no?
no,
So everybody
no,
disregard that.
I'll put it up here in a second. You can get it on Amazon. You want either out. There's two forms. There's a liquid and there's a gel. And let me go on here real quick.
And while you're doing that, so scratch that, guys. He'll post a correct link. Follow that link, not mine. But anyways, basically, for anybody who didn't understand all of that science stuff, the reason, because I know in the reefing community, there are people that are seriously for garlic, seriously against garlic. It's usually used to get fish eating, picky fish, and it's used also in that case with seahorses. But what the big difference is, the reason that people who are really against garlic are against it is this whole sciency thing where it's right when the garlic is broken, that's the allicin or whatever that thing is. So it has to be really fresh, as Dan was saying, and we're going to go with the link he's giving us. Are you showing
Yeah,
us in big here? Let me make you big,
Yeah,
Dan.
yeah. Now, I'm not a big fan of feeding garlic to fish on a regular basis as a normal supplement,
Okay.
but this in this case here, first of all, we're using it topically, but secondly, even if I used it internally, it'd be for a short duration, not permanently. So this is the Alimax liquid that I have on the screen. It's on Amazon. It runs currently 26. Prices come down $26 a bottle. Now there's another product. This is a liquid. It's 1/3 of a fluid ounce, so it's not very much, but it goes a long ways. The
yeah.
other product is
The gel,
Aliderm, and Aliderm looks like this, and it's a gel.
yeah.
And what's really cool about Aliderm is that when you put it on, like on a seahorse, is it's think of it almost like wiping a little bit of Vaseline on the wound. It stays on there better in the water.
Mm.
I keep both at home. If I'm treating an infection, I'll put the drops on. If I have an open wound that I'm not going to cover, like when I'm cleaning the tanks, I'll put the Aliderm on the cut as I'm cleaning the tanks to prevent the infection.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so to treat the outside of a seahorse, what we're literally talking about is like pulling the seahorse out of the water, dabbing it on him, and putting him back, right?
Yep, that's a 3-pack. Whoops, damn it, what happened?
Ew.
Oh,
Here's the correct link, guys.
Oh, here it is. So that's a 3-pack, 4-pack. You want the single. If you buy, well, I guess it's a much better deal buying a multi-pack. A single bottle is $29.95, but if you buy a 3-pack, it's $33.65. So $4 more, you get 3 more of them.
Yeah. Well, Susan's male apparently got started developing tail problems, and it was improving with antibiotics, but still was not healing like it should. And 2 days ago, she started using the Alamax, and I'm waiting to see the photos now.
What's the lifespan of that product?
That product should be kept in the refrigerator.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know. I've had it in there for up to a year, and it worked just as well after a year being kept in the fridge.
Does it have an expiration date on it when you get it?
I don't.
I
Or you
haven't
just
looked.
have
I haven't.
okay.
I haven't checked, so I don't know. It very well could be. It should, but I've never looked.
I can go look real quick.
Sure.
That page I'm showing Dan is the Canadian Alamax catalog. And when I bought the Alamax, when you told me about it, they only had 5 products. They now have the gel on there they didn't have back before. But that's it. That's the extent of the product here in Canada.
Have you looked on Amazon?
Why?
No, I'm having too much trouble getting stuff from Amazon if it comes from China or the US.
I do see one that's gel. Isn't that kind of the?
The gel will work. Yes.
The gel has just been added. They didn't have that in the catalog when Dan and I were talking about it before. So when I ordered, I had to get the capsule, and it's got powder inside it.
Were you able to use the powder, or did it just
Yeah,
not
I
work?
used it.
How'd you?
I never noticed it doing anything, so I'm suspecting that probably should have been the gel.
Yeah, the powder is designed to be taken orally. I wouldn't expect the powder to work topically.
Yeah.
The liquid that I have has no expiration date, and it's the first time I've read the really fine print. It says dietary supplement.
Of course, they have to. Otherwise, it becomes a medication.
Well, that's true, yeah. But there is no date on it.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl, for checking.
What other nifty little tricks do you guys use besides the hidden Alamax? Go ahead, Holly.
Well, I don't hide.
I
I don't
actually
hide the Alamax.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about a product I just picked up because I had to put together, an emergency kit in case we get evacuated. Power's been out here, all that. So I picked up something called Prime that I guess it helps with ammonia.
Yes.
So I want to see if anybody can recommend that, like for an emergency situation, if I need to take extra time between a water change, something like that.
Prime works real well. The thing you have to remember with Prime is it basically turns the ammonia into ammonium, which will deteriorate. It deteriorates within 24 to 48 hours. So that's one problem you have to stay on top of. The other is virtually the only test kit that I know of that will work and give you an accurate reading when you're using it is the CChem test kits, because those test kits read ammonia and ammonium. So you won't be able to test whether you've got a problem.
Gotcha.
What the Prime does is it changes the ammonia from one form to another. So it changes it from the toxic form to the non-toxic. In an emergency, it's handy and it's great.
Okay.
But once you use it, now your test kit's out the window.
Gotcha. Well, I'm thinking what I'd be using it for is like on the road, like if I can't have a water change in time, maybe it'll buy me 6 or 8 hours till I can go ahead and do water change and make them safe at least in their tank.
That would be very appropriate.
CChem Safe.
Yep.
Which is basically a powdered version, which might be easier to transport than trying to haul a bottle of liquid if you're evacuating. Just a thought. They both
Yeah,
work.
I just got a little bottle. I mean, when I read it, you use so little
Yep.
for a volume of water that I think just that little bottle would probably be plenty for me. It's not a regular thing, just something to keep in my emergency kit if I need it.
Yeah.
I will add to that and just say that Prime has literally saved my aquariums two different times. It also detoxifies heavy metals, and it does all these other little things that aren't the main focus that that people talk about. And I came home one day, and
Yeah.
this was freshwater. Okay, just full disclosure here. It was freshwater planted discus tank, but I came home. It was angelfish and discus, excuse me, and they were all like at the bottom, not moving, not swimming around. They were like frozen, and it was really scary. I thought they were dead, but they were still like upright. It was really weird. And I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what the problem was. All my tests came back normal, so I shot Prime in there, and they were okay within an hour. And after a couple days of water changes, everything was better. I still to this day don't know what the problem was, but Prime saved their lives. I'm convinced. So I'm a big, huge have Prime in your safety kit. Yes.
Yeah. We just had one guy that posted he moved his seahorses to a new tank, got up the next morning, they weren't moving and they were breathing really heavily. He tested positive for ammonia and put them back into the old tank, fortunately, had that available. And the seahorses did just fine. He put them in a tank that wasn't fully cycled.
Sure. So
sorry. Did just fine. But it's one of those things where they can get through it. Also, keep in mind that methylene blue, can be used to detoxify when fish are exposed to ammonia.
Ammonia poisoning. I actually have a video using that to cure my Erectus hybrids that came in with ammonia poisoning. Bad mix-up at the store. Definitely wasn't the breeder's fault, but at the store they opened the bag to take one seahorse out and then reclosed it, and I had to drive an hour. So they had ammonia poisoning. Definitely good point, Cheryl. Check the video out if you want to see how that all worked out. And I just wanted to mention Nicole. So when you were asking earlier about any tips for setting up your new tank and making sure it's cycled, have Prime. That's a great thing. Hopefully
definitely. I just don't know. I'm like, is this going to be like another 2-month process? Should I maybe put some of the rock into my refugium that's in my current tank and hope the best for the algae and scrub it like Cheryl said, which I have actually scrubbed it in salt water before, so I feel like it did help a little bit. But I still feel like I have to let it do a cycle again for 3 months. I don't know.
What are your thoughts on that? Go with Dan first, because I'm a bacteria. I use bacteria. Obviously, you're trying to steer clear of chemicals and stuff like that because of all the problems. So Dan,
but I did when I set up my first tank, I used beneficial bacteria, but that's nitrifying bacteria. It's a different class, so
right.
You know what I mean. I feel a little more safe. Everybody uses those.
Yeah.
So.
But Dan, should it take her 3 months? Or I know we've talked about cycling a lot, but when you're doing your own tank, it kind of all goes out the window, and you're like, what do I have to do again? I'm totally with you, Nicole. So what do you tell somebody when they're switching tanks? How long of a process should it be, and what can they do to make it quicker?
If she's moving the rock over, and I wouldn't expect it to take hardly any time at all. I would almost move the rock, rinse the rock real well, move it over, and move the seahorses.
Really? Okay. And
I can.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
You go.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Kelly. And if I get, obviously I'm going to get brand new live sand. So add that, and it should, in my rock, and it should be okay.
Yeah, add your sand first. Let the sand settle, and move the rock when you're ready to move the seahorses.
Yeah, and if it's live sand, it should contain some live bacteria to also help with the cycle.
Okay. And
I don't buy the live bacteria in live sand at all.
I don't either. Most usually, it depends on the quality of the product and how the date on it.
Yeah, but Cheryl, what they're doing is they're putting a plastic bag with no oxygen, and nitrifying bacteria are not going to survive that.
Exactly, unless you can get it really fresh when it was just done. That and the heat, if it's sit as somebody delivers it to your front porch, and it sits in the sun for a couple hours and stuff like that.
Well, the distribution channel sits in a warehouse in Fort Pierce until they ship it. And then when they ship it, it goes to the distributor, sits in their warehouse. Then it gets shipped to the store, and then you purchase it or you have it shipped to you, whichever is the case. It's multiple times it's sitting before you ever get it.
And people wonder why I rinse mine in fresh RODI water before I put the sand in.
Is it going to make any difference? Now, I just want to mention, guys, I don't do sand, so I can't really comment on that. But I'm sure that they're right about the live in the bag. I am a firm. I've used Dr. Tim's one and only in fresh and saltwater tanks, and I trust it. I've met Dr. Tim personally. He's great, and I don't know his secrets. Also, Fritz has a. Oh my gosh, and I'm gonna like kill myself because I can't remember the name. They've got two different ones that are extremely good, and they do work. So I don't know how some people. There is a difference between the sludge bacteria and the nitrifying, but I do think that the bottled bacteria work depending on the date. We can all have differences of opinions, but what I was going to ask is, if Nicole scrubs all this algae off, should she be worried about that, like scrub, it being out of in the air for a minute, or being scrubbed? Is she losing bacteria, or is she still going to be good?
Assuming that she puts it in salt water,
Okay.
I would not expect it to be a problem.
Gotcha.
Ray, what's your pressure?
What was it?
I asked Ray what his pressure was.
Unfortunately, it's 140 at the moment.
Ooh.
140 over what?
68.
That's actually not real bad, but if you're on
It is
medication, if you're on medication, it's up.
Disease. I have kidney disease and I have cognitive impairment, and the target is 120. So I have to take and record my blood pressure 7 times a day.
Wow.
And it's a pain, but we can't find medications that control it.
Do you have a pen handy?
Which?
A pen? Hand? Yep.
Oh, I had it here. Yeah. Yeah, there it is.
All right. Write this down. ALA.
Just a second. Gotta find a piece of paper here. ALA.
Yep. And that stands for alpha
Linoleic
lipoic acid.
Oh,
lipoic acid. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Ask your doctor if you can take that.
It doesn't work. We tried that a couple of years ago.
How much were you taking?
I don't remember it.
How long did you take it?
My mild cognitive, I don't remember, but it was a couple of years ago.
Right.
And the kidney specialist actually told my doctor to put me on it.
Good.
And it just plain didn't work.
How long did you take it though?
How long?
Yeah.
About 3 months.
Yeah. It took my uncle 6 months. Took him from stage 4 back to stage 3.
Yeah.
But he was on it for 6 months before he saw a difference.
My problem is the only one that works is the one that I've been in Alprol that I've been taking since I was about 35, and it worked up until about 5 years ago, and it gradually the pressure started getting up and up, so we would switch on to something else, try something else, it wouldn't work. Try a few different ones, still wouldn't work, so go back to the enalapril, and it worked great. And it'll go on for 6 or 8 months, working great, and then all of a sudden it starts not working again. And there's trying to think. I think at the last count, before COVID started, when I was at the doctor's office there's something like about 26 different drugs and treatments that I've been on
Hmm.
just in the last 5 years.
Wow.
But
Yep.
the only solution is to have an operation, have the right side kidney removed. But because I have cognitive impairment, I can't have anything with general anesthesia because it kicks the impairment along. The last time I had an operation, they were supposed to use an epidural, but because my spine has collapsed so much, they couldn't even get the epidural in, so they gave me a general,
Oh,
and my cognitive score has dropped from 26 down to 23 now, just because of that anesthesia.
Yep.
So
All right. Well, I was just making a suggestion there because I've seen it work on several cases.
yeah, well, I can't, like at the time they put me on it, every time before they put me on, I do the research on whatever I'm going on, and I can remember looking it up too.
Yeah.
And so I okayed it, but it's like a lot of others that I've tried, just didn't work.
Yep.
The one that I'm on at the moment is probably the closest best result to an Alpril. And the unfortunate part is it takes at least 2 months before it starts working. And in the meantime, with the blood pressure getting up in the 180s, before it starts working, that's not good.
Yep.
no.
Anyway, it's just like many other things I have wrong. It's something I have to live with.
Old peopleitis sucks.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I used to have customers that be in their 80s and 90s and that, and they're talking about how good these golden years are and be retired and do all this traveling and everything. Well, I'll tell you, for some of us, the older years are anything but golden.
Man.
Yeah, the golden years are not so golden depending on what kind of problems you have.
Yeah.
Even just sleep and I mean, I have no. I'm gonna kill my kids. Sorry, but I have no right to complain, especially after hearing Ray's issues and such. And I feel terrible for you, Ray. But even getting a little bit old sucks. I like hate not being able to sleep right. Hate my back aches in the morning. Oh man, old peopleitis does suck. Hey guys, not to jump around. And Ray, I do care, and I'm always thinking and praying for you. But we did have a question from Dylan Roberts. He asked, has anyone ever fed macroalgae with amino acids, or if they are struggling, dosed an iron supplement? Is this advised or not in a seahorse aquarium? I will let whoever wants to take a stab, but I'll tell you, in my macroalgae tank, I absolutely did dose amino acids. I did dose iron at one point. I didn't have any problem with the seahorses due to it, but I'd be curious to hear what anyone else in here thinks. Cheryl, have you ever had to use iron or amino acids in your for your macros, or?
I don't use it for. I've never used it for macro, but I don't. I typically, when I have macro in a tank, I'm typically it's going to be Calupra, which will grow anywhere, anytime on anything.
Right.
Some of the more sensitives, I'm sure that they would need it. I do have iodine. I don't use it very often.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'd have to pull everything out. I'll try and make sure I come back next week with kind of a list of what I was using. I actually wrote about it in Reef Hobbyist magazine. I'll try to link that too. But bottom line is, I didn't do it all the time, like what Cheryl's saying. I kind of got to the point where I could tell if something was doing well or not, and she's absolutely right. Some macros will just grow like crazy, and in fact, I would even dose specifically for certain macros because they weren't growing as well as others. I talked a lot about mixing refugium algae with display algae, and it's just different for me. So we're gonna have a macro session or macro talk one of these weeks for sure. Speaking of which, I just wanted to mention, I know Cheryl wants to say something. I wanted to mention this real quick, guys. Heather Hillman, if you're watching this, Heilman, if I pronounce that wrong, I'm sorry. If you're watching this on Friday, cheers. I love it that so many people who can't make it on Wednesday night watch later. I'm going to make on Seahorse Whisperer Society page, I'm going to set up a situation where you guys can ask any questions that didn't get covered, or suggest future topics and that kind of thing. So make sure you like the page to see those posts, and cheers to you that join us later. Cheryl, what were you going to say after my ramble? Sorry, about macros.
But my thing with my my thing with macro is I only have one tank right now that has any macro in it, because everything else is bare bottom. It's my whole thing has always been propagation, so I really don't do a lot with macro. However, I found that it's very easy to grow overall. I don't worry. I don't worry about it unless it gets some hair algae on it or something. Then I'll pull it out and clean it up. But other than that, I really don't do much for it.
Sure. And Ray, I know that a few weeks ago, before we got so many people coming, yay, Wine Wednesday. But Ray, I know we talked quite a few weeks ago about you were having trouble. Your algae scrubber was no longer growing, right? Did that ever get resolved?
Right. Okay.
No,
Hang on,
growing.
Cheryl. What were you going to say, Ray?
No, it's not. It's not growing in the scrubber either. It maintains a little bit around the periphery of the light zone, but it's not growing. Like I used to have to harvest it all the time because it would fill the container.
Mm-hmm. And now
So
it's
I don't know whether it's something good. Like maybe it's just stuff was leaching out of the rocks and was feeding it all the time, and maybe it's all leached out now. I don't know.
But you're not having any new problems in the tank, right? It's just
No.
not okay. What were you gonna say, Cheryl?
The thing with the algae scrubbers too is all you really need is some light and just a small amount, decent light. But you really shouldn't have to feed them too much. They'll pretty much grow by themselves.
What do you think about Ray's situation though? Like he had his scrubber going really well, and then all of a sudden it just stopped growing. And
Yeah.
That just
It
means
ran
his
out of
tank is
nutrients.
right. Okay. So obviously, to go back to Dylan's question, if you're wanting the macros to grow and they're not, or they're not doing well, you do sometimes have to feed them. That's one of the things I've used nitrate before too, and phosphate.
Yeah.
So we'll have a macro week, I promise. But I don't think there's anything wrong with using those in a seahorse tank. You just have to really research and figure out why you're dosing what and what it's going to do, for the macros. That would be my thoughts. Cheryl, go ahead.
Well, like I for a while I had Cheeto in my sumps with lights on them, and I finally came to the realization I didn't have enough nutrients in there to really keep it going really well. And but the thing is, I'm also running K1 media reactors and stuff like that, which is going to pull out a lot of the stuff that the macro would use to grow. So that would be another alternative.
Yeah, I have nothing that would pull anything out hooked up, and I have 2 red macros in the tank,
They're pretty.
and they're doing fine.
Yeah. Well, the caliper I have in the one tank
Growing with weeds.
has been in that tank for at least 4 years, and I when I clean it, I throw some of it out, literally.
Yeah,
I threw
Caulerpa.
lots
I'm sorry.
today.
Sorry, Ray. Caulerpa.
Today,
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah. Today was tank cleaning day, so I threw out lots of the yeah. I don't remember what Kelly told me it was called, but it looks like a red algae bubble, and all the bubbles all fastened together.
Gracilaria?
No, it's I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation, guys, but it's Botricladia or something like that. I'll type it in, and it's either that or string of pearl. But go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
But it goes so damn fast. It's not even funny. And when it gets too big, then clumps of it break off and get thrown around the tank. So every time I do my tank clean, I just pull out wads of it and throw it in the garbage.
That's what I do too.
Well, Calepa's one, I really do want to do a macro wine Wednesday soon, and pull out all the things I use, because I just think I don't use Calepa in any of like my display macro tanks, because it's such a fast grower that nothing else really would have a chance. So anybody who's doing macros, and Dylan, any of you, let us know what's working for you, what you keep, what you've noticed, and definitely when I put up the announcement for the macro week, definitely come and share with us. But anyways, go ahead. Anything else you guys wanted to say about that? We had another.
No, I gotta go see the seahorses.
Thanks for coming, Ray, and take care of those seahorses, of course. Let us know any updates. We had another comment that seahorses are very fragile and they can jump out of a tank. I've never had a seahorse jump out of a tank, but they are fragile.
What?
They can be.
I've never seen a seahorse jump.
But any other open chat, guys? Anything else that you've seen recently that you want?
I have some good news, Kelly.
Okay.
My 7-week-olds are converted to frozen mysis.
Woo,
They'll
yeah.
eat the big ones.
Nice job. Congratulations.
Yeah, they're
Ollie.
loving it. They're excited about it. Now they don't like the live food as much.
I usually start them at right around 5 to 6 weeks of age, depending on their size. And it usually takes me
Yeah,
about
that's what
2
I
weeks to get them completely switched over. And
Yeah.
I tell people you just got to be harder headed than the seahorse.
I think it helps if they're hungry.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
know, when you give it to them and they don't really have a choice, they're going to check it out.
All it takes is one trying it, and seahorse see, seahorse do. They're all going to start following suit on it.
Yeah, they started. They even fight over it. Like they'll grab it right out of each other's face.
Oh, yeah.
But they also, I had fun. I think I posted a video on here because I have a few of the great big adult brine shrimp, and now and then, I'll put some in for them to chase, and they're fun to watch hunting.
Oh yeah.
And I think that kind of got them into the frozen mysis, because when it's floating around in the tank everywhere, it kind of looks like that big brine shrimp they learned to eat. So yeah, they're doing good on it.
That is
I'm
so
sorry.
amazing. Go ahead, Nicole.
I know I've already taken up a lot of time. I just
No.
have a quick question, just because I'm in the thick of this right now. So mine are also 7 weeks. My older fry, but now I have these babies popping out. Is it okay to keep them in the same tank as long as I'm still using the BBS, or should I separate them? Because I don't have another tank set up, because I had, again, no idea he was pregnant.
I don't like mixing fry that are more than 2 weeks age difference. I've had poor success doing so.
Okay, all right, I will get something set up. Thank you.
Why, Dan?
Yeah, I have mine separate. I'm in the same boat, Nicole. I have ones that are 2 weeks old right now. So I have 2 weeks, and my other ones that were born the same day as yours that are turning 8 weeks on Friday. So they're actually quite a few weeks apart. And I just didn't feel comfortable putting them together. They're too small, and I'm worried about the bio load on the tank from all the different kinds of feeding.
Oh, I agree. My big ones still are not completely, weaned to frozen yet. So
what,
I
Nicole?
have one that's just like, and funny enough, it's my largest, of the 7-week-old. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not eating that. No matter what, like I can't, nothing I can do. He's not doing it. He's not touching it.
Mine started, the first thing that got him interested was actually frozen baby brine shrimp. And that was the first frozen food that they would try. And then I mixed that with a little frozen brine shrimp. So I had baby and adult brine. And then I added a little bit of the shaved mysis. And then once they started going for the bigger brine shrimps, I stopped with the baby brine and then added more mysis, less of the brine shrimp. And I kind of slowly until they were okay with just the frozen mysis. And now that's all I use.
Right.
I'm laughing because I used to go through all of that. Now it's okay. You've got a few day old baby brine shrimp. You were able to eat those. Now you're going to get shaved frozen mysis, and I've shaved a carrot peter, make it very small, and they get that first thing at every feeding, and it usually takes them sometimes a day or two to start snicking it a little bit, and once they do, you can see they start definitely preferring the mysis over the brine shrimp.
Yeah, they really do. Mine, I want to say, was 3 days before they took frozen, period.
Yeah.
They were checking it out, but they'd really look at it and follow it around and what's this? But no one would eat it at first. And then they kind of started sampling it. So it did take them, like you said, a couple days to figure it out, but I just kept giving it to them and vacuuming it out after.
I had one that I was laughing, one of my tiger tail babies. I'm watching it, and all of a sudden it's floating on the surface, and there's a little bitty piece of frozen mysis on the surface, and it's floating on the surface without moving and slowly getting closer and closer in the current. And I'm thinking something's really wrong with this seahorse. Next thing I know, I see the snick. Stealth capture.
They're mesmerized. No, they'll follow it. I've watched them drift along just following one piece of mysis and that's why, I get frustrated with them because they only have like a few minutes before it'll spoil and I have to vacuum it all out. So I'm like, hurry up and eat, but they're following it around and checking it out. And I'm like, hurry up and just eat it.
Well, remember, they're stealth predators. That's what they do. That's how they make it.
Exactly. No, it's fun to watch.
Watching a little bit of tiger tail fry stock a piece of frozen mysis just absolutely cracked me up.
I'm a little jealous. I wish mine were completely trained.
Have you guys ever actually? I really when Dan comes back, I really wanted him to give a little further explanation about why he doesn't. Is Dan back? Guess not. Okay, but with all of you guys, have you ever had a fry that just seriously, like Nicole's talking about? Because I've had a batch before that just, no matter what I did, it took me forever to get them weaned. Or do you not run into that very often? Cheryl? Oh, Cheryl must be paused too.
Do you guys think so real quick before?
Go ahead, Nicole.
Sorry, Holly. You can go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
No, you think that they'll be fine for the night though, because I'm kind of like, I used all my fresh water my fresh salt water, obviously, for a tank change for the babies, and then also to put the adults into a hospital tank. Do you think that they'll be fine for the night in with the big guys? Because I'm just straight up out of water and I don't want to go outside because it creeps me out, and we always have raccoons.
Well, first off, they're going to have to be. But as soon as Dan gets back, I'm going to hit him with both of those questions just to get his take. And it kind of surprised me. I know that the pros will separate fry for reasons like, from keeping siblings. Anyways, they've got lots of reasons. But I've also heard many times people using an older fry to get younger fry to eat frozen. So Dan's back. So Dan, Nicole had 2 quick questions. First of all, I had a question. I was hoping you would explain a bit further why you don't like mixing fry that are too far apart in age. And then Nicole wanted to know if they'd at least be okay for tonight. Go ahead.
I would if you've already got them there, I'd leave them there for the night. The reason I don't do it is we have tried many times when we mix fry that are more than 2 weeks apart, our success numbers drop. And I can't tell you why.
Oh.
It may have something to do with the the gut not being fully formed in the younger fry, I don't know. All I know is that every time that we've done it, our successes drop. Now we don't lose the whole batch typically, but the percentage of what we raise drops down significantly.
Well, there
I
you
found
go.
that I don't mix them until they're at least 3.5 roughly inches. Then I can mix some different age groups and sizes without problem. But when they're younger, doesn't work well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'll mix them later on, but when I got new fry, I don't want to put new fry in with
No.
older fry.
Well,
Dan, go ahead, Cheryl.
I'm sure the older fry, first of all, will outcompete them for all available food.
Well, I don't have that problem because I'm using 90-gallon tanks that are loaded up with food. That's not
Yeah.
an issue. But I lose, not only do I lose the young ones, but I also lose some of the older ones when I do that.
Is it possible there's something difference between the parents' tanks that could be causing?
I've done it from the same tank and it still had the same issue.
It's just mixing, huh?
Yeah, I can't tell you the exact reason. My suspicion is that you've got an immature gut on the younger fry, and you probably have a change in the bacterial flora within the
Yeah.
tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Have you ever had a situation? I think you were gone when we were chatting about it. Have you ever had a situation where you just have really stubborn fry, like Nicole was discussing her 7-week-old or biggest fry just won't take frozen? Have you ever had that happen? Stubborn?
Stubborn to take frozen?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, but generally speaking, for us, it's not as much of an issue as it is for people that have small quantities,
Yeah.
because we have so many fry that, number one, if they don't take, and they don't grow, we just cull them anyway. But because there's so many in there, they're playing follow the leader. When you've got, 4 or 5 fry, it's a different ball game than when you have a few hundred in a tank.
Sure, and that was
Ob-
the other thing is, I'm sorry, Cheryl, that was the other thing. We just talked about not mixing when they're too far apart, but I've heard a lot of people using an older fry, sticking it into a baby, not a
That's
baby, but a
that
4-week-old.
Yeah, but that's entirely different than mixing newborns with 2-week or 3-week or 4-week-old fry.
Fair enough, gotcha. Okay.
Well, I've also found that, like, particularly when I had my wild caught combs, their fry were some of the hardest headed fry I've ever had to try to get them to switch to frozen. It took me several weeks to get them to switch to frozen. And as opposed to Erectus, which is, I can throw it in there and they're going to start taking it. And I'm not sure if it's because they're wild caught or if it's a difference in the species.
Well, Erectus will eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, for Christ's sakes.
Well,
I don't know. Some of my combs have been real hard headed.
what out of the guys who've done this for a while with different species, what was the hardest species to get eating? Like, what is the pickiest species eaters, if that makes sense?
I have never raised them, but I think reed-eye are one of the hardest to raise.
I've brought in wild caught reed eye. Now, in the beginning, I would have agreed with that, but after having seahorses for so long, even when I brought in wild caught reed eye for broodstock, I didn't even bother to get live food to have on hand. I was
Mhm.
that confident in switching them over to frozen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, the fry, they'll take to live foods right away, and we had no problem converting them over to frozen. The only problem is with those guys, you really got to be super careful at keeping all the food up off the bottom, or you'll lose them once you convert them.
Dan, or I'm sorry, Ray, what's your thoughts? Because my pickiest eater, and I wasn't actually talking fry, I was just talking about picky eaters, but Barbori, man, they are so picky. Like my female, my favorite seahorse out of all of my seahorses, would literally inspect a piece of food and make sure it had eyeballs, would not eat it if it didn't have eyeballs. Do you
I
find,
can't say I've experienced that with my barbs.
maybe it's just mine?
I always found barbs to be slow and methodical.
Yeah.
I have one of them as a runt, smallest one of the bunch, and that one is swimming around all the time. And you put food in, and the others don't stand a chance getting to it if that one's going to grab the stuff first. Like it's just so active and attacks the food. Just I don't think I don't think I've ever had any other species that was any faster at getting the food down than what that little one is.
They're,
But,
they're
And
all
Nominalis was the easiest. In
and
fact,
Gus was a slow eater. But I've had barbs early in my career and late in the career, and I can't say that any of them were slow. I had some combs that were slow, but that was some of them were slow and some of them seemed just normal to me. But I guess you could have said that about the reed eye too. Usually the reed eye fed fairly well, but there was always a few and all the same ones that just didn't feed like the rest of them did.
Well, I have female combs right now that Dan sent me, and this particular female, she will see me walk in the room, and she immediately heads over and she rockets out and grabs as much food as she can before anybody else even realizes it's going in the tank. She's fat. She just feeds massively.
I'll tell you.
A little slower.
Yeah, I think oftentimes it's just the individual seahorse
Exactly.
can make the difference. And if you have a tank and you've got a pair of seahorses and maybe both of them are ones that aren't aggressive feeders, so you think that that species doesn't feed as well as some others.
You could be right, and I've said this before too, and people always tell me I'm nuts, but every tank, no matter the species, I always have the most trouble with the females. Like they just don't. It sounds so ridiculous, but they just don't respond to me the same way the males do. But if I send Sean and Sean's the feeder, these girls are like up against the glass. I'm like, can they tell sex out of humans or what? But anyways. Nicole, Holly, I wanted to make sure, I didn't see any other questions in the comments. Make sure, guys, anybody who watches this even later, to pay attention to Seahorse Whisperer Society page, because I'm going to make sure to get a place for where you guys can ask later questions or suggest topics. And we're just going to start listing the topics at least a few weeks out. But Holly and Nicole, did any other questions that we didn't get to hit?
I do have one real quick question now that you bring that up, since I'm just reached the stage with the frozen mysis. How many times a day? They're going to be 8 weeks on Friday. They're about 2 inches roughly. How many times a day do you guys feed the frozen mysis at that age?
are you at home all the time or you work?
Right now, yeah, I am. And I've been giving them 3 times a day, like morning, lunch, and dinner normally, and supplementing that still with some baby brine shrimp for them to snack on during the day. But if I'm going to just do the frozen, how many times a day should they have that?
Well, I would overlap on the other stuff for a little while, but we
Okay.
used to do it every 2 to 3 hours.
Yes.
Okay.
Now that by the more they eat, the more that you feed, the faster they're going to grow.
Mhm.
Okay.
But it's critical that you siphon up excess stuff and not leave it laying around.
Yeah, that's the
Right.
thing. I'm like, oh, 3 times a day, but then that's vacuuming the tank 3 times a day. So you know what I'm saying?
Maybe you
That's
have to do a little
work.
bit of feeding, Holly.
But about every 3 hours, you say? Is
I'm-
good?
Get a little bit less at each
All
feeding
the
if you have a lot
Okay.
left over in between.
Hang on.
My-
Wait,
My
time
maximum-
out. Guys, we all got stuff to say. I'm just going to
Yeah.
pick the person. Ray, go first. Repeat what you just said.
Just, yeah, if you've got a lot of vacuuming to do, then it's a case of feeding too much, not that you're feeding too often. You're better to feed less and feed it more times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Than
But
just
it's
feed
still
more.
vacuuming as many times. To me, it's like as much as I vacuum, it's still because they're in a small tank, so it's not a huge space. But the fact that I have to break out the vacuum, the bucket, all those times a day.
Well,
Well, I think what
my-
he's sorry. I
Mhm.
think what Ray was kind of getting at is maybe feed. If you feed less, there shouldn't be as much to vacuum. But I get your
Yeah,
point,
that.
Holly. I get it. Cheryl, go ahead.
Yeah,
my
because it's
rule of
going to be a
thumb,
gallon of water every time.
Sorry.
my rule of thumb is to feed every 3 hours until they get
Gotcha.
to about the 3.5 inch, because they will grow much faster the more you more frequently you feed them.
All right.
Ultimately, depending on how they're growing, I do eventually cut back to 3 meals a day. But that's
Mhm.
one of those things where they're much larger by the time I do that. But it means more.
Gotcha. And still keep the baby brine shrimp in there too. Like,
No,
how long should I do that? To
I
what age?
don't know what Dan does. Once they're solidly taking the frozen, and I'm seeing them all taking it, and I can see the change in the color and the growth rate. No more
Mhm.
brine shrimp. The brine shrimp just is not really a great nutritional food for seahorses anyway. We already know that. And I would much rather get them onto mysis as quickly as I can.
We,
Mhm.
we generally, about 2 weeks, once they start on frozen, there's about a 2 week overlap that we do.
Mhm.
And basically, what we do is we adjust the food so that we're feeding more and more frozen, less and less Artemia. Um,
Gotcha.
and the idea behind that is that just like if you're changing a dog's diet or anybody else, a new food is going to change the bacterial colonies within the gut, the digestion process,
Mhm.
and you want to allow them to transition over, and you'll find you'll have less losses if you do that correctly. Now, does it take that long always? Maybe not, but that's just how we did it, and it worked very well for us.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you want to keep plenty of food around for them. But you want to, it's like with anytime you change diet, you need to do it in a gradual process. I totally agree with Dan. Um, and I remember when I used to go through the frozen brine shrimp to frozen cyclopses, and remember when we were doing all that stuff on the org?
Mhm.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, I gave up on Cyclopes about, I don't know,
I
couple
did too.
within a year or two after starting it.
I just found that the seahorses actually preferred the frozen mysis bits, and they totally ignore the cyclopses. They just wouldn't take.
Mhm.
Well, again, Nicole, did you have any? If you're still with us, if you have any other questions, I definitely want you to get it in. And I just got to keep saying this because I know that my situation is so much different than Cheryl, Dan, and Ray's, and so I'm sitting here like I've had stubborn fry. Okay, so don't feel bad at all. But did you have any other questions, Nicole?
No, I'm good. I'm gonna just keep on with the frozen, and
Yes.
you know,
Keep us updated on the newborns, on the treatment. We care. I know it's a lot on your plate, lady. I know it.
it's crazy,
On
but
a
it's
side
fine.
note, the hardest part about weaning seahorse fry to frozen is in your mind, because what happens,
Mhm.
you're afraid that they won't take it, so you get worried. So then you get the more brine shrimp. In reality, you just got to
Mhm.
be harder headed than they are, and they'll do great.
Well, as Dan mentioned earlier, it's a lot harder when you have a few that you actually care about and you want to raise versus when you've got a whole big batch and a few don't matter. So just there's different ways. Okay.
That's the thing.
Yes. Go ahead.
I only got a few. I only have a few of the larger babies. So honestly, they're my priority right now. But I want to do the best I can for the new ones as well. So, ay.
You're gonna be all right. I know it. Keep
That,
pushing.
that's a that's a proper priority, by the way. The way that we've always set our priorities up in terms of dealing with the fry is the ones that we've put the most effort into are the ones that take precedent over others.
Mhm.
I can't help it. I've watched them grow now for the last almost 8 weeks, and the 3 that I have out of
Mhm.
the whopping 16 that I started with, they're doing so good, and I just don't want to see anything happen to them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really quick, final question about that. For anyone who's having trouble with weaning onto frozen, obviously, Dan, you've said before that it's not really about a certain age; it's more about the size. But if they continue on just baby brine shrimp, even if it's enriched, will they at some point, not grow as well if they don't switch to frozen?
Well,
It depends upon how you enrich the food. You know, there's a breeding outfit in the Keys that does not use uh, frozen myces at all. They do it completely with brine shrimp. Now, the
Wow.
key there is to change from baby brine to adult brine. And because they are a brine shrimp facility, they have unlimited access to brine shrimp to use and to gut load and to do it. Um, but I've done it before with, I've kept adult seahorses on adult brine only for over a year with no issues.
Hey, Nicole.
Um,
Nicole, love you much, but mute, because we near your water. No big
Oh,
deal.
I'm so
No, you're
sorry.
okay.
I forgot.
No, you're fine. Go on, Dan. Sorry. Go ahead.
so if you're enriching properly and if you have the right size brine shrimp, yeah, you could continue on. But once you get past 6 to 8 weeks, they're really too big at that point to get sufficient nutrition off of baby brine shrimp. They need larger brine shrimp in order to
yeah.
get enough to grow properly.
I'll never forget I've got a video up there somewhere of this little fry trying to eat an adult brine shrimp because I think I had extra for some reason enriched and I, wanted them to eat. And I put them in the baby fry tank and the adult brine shrimp is bigger than the seahorse fry's head. And boy, that thing still chased it trying to get it. It was crazy. But anyway, Cheryl, what were you going
Oh,
to say?
They'll keep snicking them until they tear them apart, whether it be live mysis or live brine shrimp. I mean, I had one tank, and I don't remember how old the fry were, but they were probably at least an inch long. And I was still feeding them brine shrimp. This is years ago. And darned if they didn't start a feeding ball and actually corner all the brine shrimp into one area and started snicking them off. It was fascinating to watch.
Yeah, that's one of sorry, I got sidetracked. I was thinking about Lucy's video showing how to feed dwarfs and how she uses the light to get all the brine in the same. Just kind of that your story made me think of it. Okay, guys. So, any other thoughts, questions? We're gonna get into Artemia and enrichment really soon. That's an upcoming episode. Dan just needs time to get her together because he's trying to put together really, really key information for us. And I know Felicia's going to come in the coming weeks, and we're going to have a big discussion about seahorse illness and vibrio, however you want to pronounce it. And so, be sure to share any things that you want to be covered. You can always come and ask questions that are off topic. And we're just so glad that so many people are enjoying Wine Wednesday now. Sorry, guys, I'm rambling. Dan, Cheryl, Holly, Nicole, Ray, anything that that we didn't cover that you wanted to ask or say?
Anybody want to come and top off my tanks and feed everybody their nighttime meal?
Pass.
No takers.
Sorry. Okay, guys. Well, then I am gonna call it for tonight. Trying to shorten these so people can not be up all night. But appreciate you guys all so much for coming and sharing. We'll announce some more topics soon. But you guys, actually, I have a really quick question for all of you guys, and this is crazy because I'm looking at my tank. The significant other did this wonderful thing. I had to go up to the cabin this weekend to not celebrate, but remember my mother. Long story, not going to tell it. Anyways, came back. He had cleaned my seahorse tank, the one that's really, really a mess. The seahorses love it, but it looks like the Amazon underwater. And anyways, he cleaned it up for me. But I noticed, and this is a bare bottom tank, but it has a lot of algae and it has, rock. And I noticed that it's got bubbles coming up from under places that he's cleaned that still have a little bit of algae, and there's bubbles. And I know from the past that isn't that like something like toxic, meaning that there's anaerobic bacteria or something? Anybody? Okay.
I get that in my brine shrimp tanks when I raise them, and it's really easy. Like it'll peel off. and you can just suck it up. I think if you get it up, it's probably fine. It hasn't taken out any of my brine shrimp so far,
No, I got you.
but I think I know what you're talking about.
And for anybody who watches this later,
It has bubbles, like.
yeah, like bubbles up to the top, and I just remember from my reef that can be a really bad thing. Like when you stir your sand, you don't want the bubbles coming up because that's toxic.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just wondered. All right, well, if you watch this later and have a thought, feel free to tell me.
Well, guys, I need to hit the road. I do have to go feed everybody and top off tanks.
Yep.
So we'll see you all next week.
Thank you so much for coming,
Good night,
Cheryl.
Cheryl.
Thank you.
See ya.
Okay, guys, and I'm actually going to cut the stream, so everyone say your goodbyes.
Night all.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Nicole, and keep us updated. Happy Wine Wednesday, everybody. See you next week. Cheers.